Hello card player listeners, this is the High Stakes Poker Spotlight, an in-depth look at some of the game's best and richest players. These players always help show us why poker is a game of skill. Here with you today is Brian Pempus, and I had a chance to interview Brian Hastings. Hastings is a 3-time WSOP bracelet winner and one of the most successful online poker players in history. He once won more than $4 million in a single day online playing high-stakes cash against Viktor Blom. The Floridian recently penned a blog post in which he describes his decision to step back from the game. In an intelligent way to plan for the future, he wants to use his time and his poker money on his startup, Unity, which will be a brick-and-mortar tea shop. He has plans to open up his first location sometime in the first half of next year. Hastings is a good example of how many poker pros eventually find a way to branch off and do something else in life. Part of his decision to scale back his play to 10 to 20 hours a week while at the top of the game was due to mental health struggles that the 28-year-old has long been open about. He said he's happier now after making public his plans to semi-retire. Hastings' career hasn't been without some controversy. His use of data on Blom's play and playing online from the US despite its restrictions were among a couple things some in the poker community took issue with. But there are many out there who still support Hastings as a poker player and as a person. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Yeah, first off, can you talk about your motivation for sharing your thoughts on the blog post about retiring from poker?
Yeah, sure. So I guess like I said in the blog, I made the decision basically 2 weeks ago on a flight back from Montreal. I mean, it's something I've been thinking about on some level for 5 years, pretty much since Black Friday. I guess when I realized the direction the industry was heading, and I guess when I watched that episode of The Prophet a couple months ago on the T2Go, it really I was intrigued. Like, I've been watching that show with Sonya a lot recently, and a lot of the ideas I'm like, it's not a great industry, blah blah blah. But I'm always kind of taking mental notes. And with tea, it's a high margin business, and it's something that I've really grown to enjoy a lot. And especially it hits home for me because I've been mostly a coffee drinker in my adult life, but in recent years, I've kind of started to develop this acid reflux thing where if I drink a lot of coffee in the morning, it messes with my stomach, and tea doesn't do that. So tea has just been, I've kind of naturally transitioned to tea, and I feel like that's a thing that could end up happening with a lot of other people too. And I took entrepreneurship classes in college, and one of the messages that really stuck to me was that sometimes the customer doesn't know what he wants until you put it in front of him. And I think there's kind of some unrealized demand for tea that, with the right product and marketing, could happen. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel fortunate that you have a plan B from poker? A lot of people might not have the educational background or sort of the financial wherewithal to venture outside of poker and start a business.
You could call it fortune, but I certainly, when I was 18 years old and had already made 300,000 playing online poker, there were certainly a lot of people in my life being like, "Oh, why are you going to college? Why do you need that? Why don't you just play poker?" And but I listened to the people in my life who were like, "Oh, trust me, you're going to want to go to that college degree someday." And for a few years during the heart of the poker boom, I scaled back my poker play to part-time in order to do my college work. So, you can call it fortune, but I made a conscious decision. And I did actually see a Pocket Fives post that I made once when I was 18, talking about my decision to go to college, that really rings true to this day. I could try to find it later, but basically I was at peace with my decision. I thought it was going to be the route that provided me better life balance. And I think it was the right decision. I would do the same thing again. And certainly I'm glad now at 28 years old and trying to move to a new industry that I have that degree and all that knowledge and expertise.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people describe poker as something as sort of, escapism. When you're at a poker table, the hours pass by really quickly. Do you feel like the past 7 or 8 years of you being in the poker world have sort of gone by quickly? And do you feel that sort of having this moment at 28 sort of is you sort of putting a sort of a long-term goals into your mind rather than just sort of getting by month by month in the poker world trying to find the best games. Do you think this is more of a long-term plan, and does that make you feel better about where your life is going?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the biggest problems for me in poker has been like, I would kind of work towards certain goals, and then reaching those goals would make it harder for me going forward. Like, when I first started playing mixed games, for example, I lost over $1 million trying to learn the games, but I justified it by saying like, oh yeah, this might be a little bit foolish, but once I learn the games, like I'm going to be able to win it back and then some. And that's not, I mean, I have won some of it back, but that's not exactly how it played out. And nowadays, I get shut out of games. They're just mixed games don't run that much. Like, I mean, especially in Florida, there's a lot of politics regarding pretty much all the high stakes poker games. And, it's not like I can just show up at whatever the best high stakes game is running in Florida and sit down. It's exactly pretty much the opposite, actually. So, yeah, I mean, that part of poker has frustrated me. And I mean, I think it's no coincidence that I've developed like a strong interest in politics because it's kind of shaped my experience in poker over the last few years. And I am excited to be moving to something that I can actually, I have a long-term goal that I can set, and there's no artificial barriers like that are preventing me from accomplishing it.
Mm-hmm. How much of your semi-retirement from poker was due to being shut out of games in Florida? I know with after Black Friday or in the modern era or the last few years of poker, the games have gotten super tough. So can you talk about the combination of the games being harder and also not having access to the games that you once did?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it for sure. Like, I think if I was able to find a good, big enough game to play every day, like, I might feel differently on some level. But I still think there's also a part of me that's just always, for the last at least 5 years, possibly even longer. I mean, I think I had some of these feelings even when I was playing poker in college and thought I'd want to move on to bigger and better things eventually. But certainly after Black Friday, it really hit. And yeah, I mean, I think I've been wanting to find a new challenge for a long time, and I think it was hard for me to find that in poker. Like, I mean, pretty much the only things at this point that I could have done would be to try to rig battle all the heads up no limit regs online, which again, given that I'm in the United States, I can only play on ACR basically, so that's not really much. And or just start traveling all over the place and play high stakes tournaments and try to run good. And I don't really think that's a healthy lifestyle. So yeah, I mean, as an American poker player, there's not much option, I would say. So, I mean, I think I really just needed to move on.
Mm-hmm. Do you find living overseas was not satisfying for you, and that you were really meant to be in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, I think I covered that in the blog. I mean, at least at that point in my life, like, at this point in my life, if I moved somewhere with Sonya and had access to all the best poker sites in the world, I think that would be a workable thing. But honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, there's just so much about the industry that I really don't like, and that makes me kind of ashamed to, have my life focused on it. I mean, I love the game itself. I'll always play. Like, I'm not quitting the game, but I'm really excited to just be moving on to an industry where I think I'm going to encounter a lot more positivity and support.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Can you talk about how hard it is to make it in poker without a support system? A lot of people, travel around a lot, might feel like they're in a way nomadic without a strong support system around them other than their friends who play poker. Is that a tough thing to sort of deal with if you're someone, especially if you're going through a downswing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly without any kind of support system, it's almost impossible, I would say. I mean, yeah, if you literally don't have any kind of good people you can talk to in times of need, like, I think even with the right resources, like, even if you ever run at one subscription and you have the mental game of poker and all that good stuff, like, you're just going to go crazy at some point. So yeah, I mean, I think having a good network, both, even like people, non-poker people like family and just close friends who have nothing to do with poker, and also having people within poker that you can, kind of share, I mean, occasional bad beat stories and just kind of, vent a little bit too. I think both of those are important things. And and also just obviously having people who you can talk poker with and, learn about the game speeds up the learning process tremendously. Although, I mean, there are great resources out there these days, like Run It Once and some of the Twitch streams and all that.
Hmm. Is it tough because poker requires you to totally immerse yourself in the game to become elite at it, and so it might monopolize a lot of time and not leave room for relationships outside of poker. So yeah, if you're the only people around you in your support system are people that you talk strategy with, does that sort of limit you in terms of your overall life balance and maybe your longevity in the game?
Yeah, I think that kind of played out when I lived in Vancouver, actually. So, I mean, I was there for 3 months, and I did make some very good friends while I was there, but, probably 90% or more of them were poker players. I was seeing a girl a little bit, which drove me, gave me something that wasn't poker, but really, like, almost all the time I spent in Vancouver was either playing poker or hanging out with poker players. And I think part of that drove me a little bit crazy. Like, again, like, this was me at 23 or whatever. Like, I mean, if I did that today, I think I'd be able to do it in a healthier way. And I'm not knocking the people I met in Vancouver. I mean, there were some great poker player friends who I met, and I would like to be friends with for the rest of my life. But still, just the fact that my life was so weighted toward poker, I think, was part of the reason that I was driven crazy at the time.
Hmm. Yeah, do you think it's fair to say that with with playing, do you feel like when you're winning or if you're really immersed in the game, it's really hard to realize right away? I mean, on your own, like, do you think there are subtle ways that sort of an obsession with poker can really overshadow your other relationships in life to the point where you don't even realize it's happening until maybe you feel distant from other people in your life that you once felt close to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even tonight, like, even after my quote unquote retirement, like, I have a decision tonight whether to play. I mean, so like I said, the poker scene in Florida has a lot of like semi-private casino games. So there's this great 5-10 no limit hold'em, PLO, and Crazy Pineapple mixed game that I play at Isle on Tuesdays and Thursdays now. But I have some friends who I haven't hung out with in a while, and I'm a Cowboys fan, and the Cowboys are playing the Vikings tonight. And I'm making the decision. I want to reconnect. I want to maintain my relationship with those friends, and I think I'm going to have more fun going to a fun bar and watching the game with them. So that's what I'm doing. And I don't have to play poker every day. Like, and that's the kind of decision that when you're playing for a living, it's a lot harder to make that decision, I would say. And I don't fault anybody for choosing to work, but I think if you're always making that choice to work, then your life balance is going to fall out of whack, and it's going to be really hard to manage your life.
Hmm. And do you think that life balance allows you to play better in the long run too? Maybe a lot of people don't realize that if they have things outside of poker that bring them happiness, it'll actually allow them to play better at the table and definitely help them avoid tilt.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like, there's a part of me that kind of wonders what would have happened if I chose to like take a break from college or whatever and just play like a full-time poker schedule during like pre-Black Friday. But I mean, I obviously did really well with what I did. Like, I mean, I was playing 15 to 20 hours a week most weeks. I mean, more on like breaks from school and stuff, like winter break and summer break and stuff. But I mean, all in all, like, I played hundreds of less hours than I would have otherwise been able to play. But I still made, I cleared seven figures, I think 3 years in a row while I was in college. So, I mean, part of me wonders if I would have, kept winning at the same rate if I put on more volume, or if I would have just like kind of gone crazy sooner and, had to take breaks and were lost or tilted or what. I don't know. I mean, it's tough.
Hmm. Given how you're feeling at 28, do you sort of wonder how like a Doyle Brunson is able to play poker so much over so many years and not get burnt out? Do you ever look at other players and sort of analyze their mental game and how they're able to play at a high volume for maybe the majority of their life?
Well, if you look at Doyle specifically, I mean, I've played a decent amount of poker with Doyle, like sometimes playing the big mix game at Bellagio. And what I noticed about Doyle is he has a very healthy routine. Like, yes, he does play poker for a living. He plays a lot of poker, but Doyle shows up to play at like 10 in the morning or something. He leaves probably by 8 at the latest. He doesn't overdo it. He doesn't put in those 15-hour sessions. He's not taking Adderall. He's not doing any of that stuff. And he has other hobbies. Like, he follows politics, obviously. I think he hunts. Like I mean, I saw this was on Thanksgiving. I saw him talking about how he went to Cracker Barrel or something for Thanksgiving dinner and got this great deal, and he was excited about that. So like, yeah, I mean, I think a guy like Doyle Brunson, like, that's a really brilliant person who knows how to do it the right way. And certainly there are some people who can do that, but I just don't think it's the right path for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you really have to value things outside of poker to have that mindset. I mean, you mentioning that comment he made about dinner. I mean, it sounds like even despite all the money he's won, he's still pretty, is not going to have leaks outside of poker. Is that another thing? Like financial leaks outside of the game can also maybe keep you um, playing the game at an unhealthy sort of rate or sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is the people who are able to do it in the healthiest way and be the most successful are the people who aren't in it for the wrong reasons. So, I mean, I think the people like Doyle Brunson or just a lot of the really really successful players, and not all of them. I mean, there are exceptions, but someone like Phil Galfond, I think they're not it. The reason they're so into poker isn't because of the money. The money is a byproduct of their success. And I think if you look at like a lot of the best business leaders in the world also, it's the same way. Like Warren Buffett, like one of the richest men in the world, he lives in the same house he's lived in Omaha forever. Like that guy's not motivated by money. Like money is a byproduct of success. But I think at the core of these people are competitors. They're motivated by a competitive drive, and they're motivated by achievement. So, for Doyle Brunson, like being able to beat the biggest mixed games in the world at age 78 is awesome. But the actual amount of money that shows up in his bank account is just a byproduct of that. And I think that's why people like that are able to succeed.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, with pretty much all areas of life, you hear people, you know, climbing a mountain, conquering something that they had once thought was a huge challenge in their life, and then they move on to something else. Do you feel like that's what you've done here, and that's sort of a natural, healthy progression for someone who's into competitive game playing, or being competitive and trying to build something for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, like it's been about 5 years where I've been kind of searching for something to do. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Draft Day, but basically, Draft Day was a daily fantasy startup. I invested in Draft Day, I believe, in 2012, which was before DraftKings even existed. And I mean, at the time, my good friends Taylor Capey and Andrew Wiggins were the founders. I thought they had a really great idea. I thought this was an emerging industry, and I invested a sizable chunk of money for 4% of Draft Day. And at the time, I actually moved to Chicago for this was after the Vancouver experience, and I realized that wasn't making me happy. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? I actually moved to Chicago in the fall of 2012 for 6 months with the idea, oh, I'm gonna wake up every morning and go into the Draft Day office at 9 a.m. and see what I can help with. But I think I was a little bit naive in that my plan, the execution of it, because what I didn't realize was Draft Day already had employees taking care of everything that needed to be done. So I kind of got in the office, and then I kind of like found myself twiddling my thumbs and doing random odd jobs, and like I realized like, oh yeah, I mean I don't really have a role here. And then that kind of led me to be depressed again because I was excited. I was really excited for that. And I mean, I was still happy with my investment, and I still played on the site a lot, and I contributed in the ways that I was able to contribute, like basically like kind of driving action to the site, and yeah, a little bit of marketing stuff, like using my poker fame, and even just like kind of testing out other sites and seeing what I thought we were doing better than them, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a full time role of any you know it wasn't a full time role, and it wasn't the right fit for me at the time to like basically my plan didn't work out. So I ended up getting depressed again. I ended up leaving Chicago. I actually bought Chicago Bulls season tickets that year with some friends, Taylor and Andrew and one other. I paid like $1,500 for the season tickets in the upper deck, and I ended up going to 5 games. And I didn't even sell the tickets. I just let them go to waste mostly because I didn't want to be in Chicago when I didn't want to be there anymore. It was cold. I left in December. I moved to Florida, and I didn't come back really until I had to move my stuff out. But all right, I guess that's enough stop for now.
Well, did that experience in Chicago with draft day give you a lot of, would you say, experience for your tea company? And I guess how far along into the process of hiring employees are you guys right now with the tea company?
Oh yeah, I definitely learned some things. Yeah, I mean, I think it's still, even though there wasn't really a role for me, I still got a good feel for like what an office place functions, like what a small business office functions like. I mean, the draft day office had maybe like 10 or 12 people in there, all with their own assigned roles. Like you had the marketing director, you had the coding people, computer scientists, you had Taylor running the show. You had Andrew kind of focusing on like the financial stuff and also just doing a lot of like the dirty work, I would say, just like stuff that needs to get done. Yeah, and you had the customer service people answering emails and live chat and all that. So yeah, I really got a feel for like what a small business needs to do in terms of like early stage employment and stuff. So for me, right now I'm pretty much doing everything by myself, but I have a partner lined up. It's not official yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. But I mean, he has a job right now and he's working his job for the moment. So, yeah, but, as far as hiring other people, I don't think I'm going to need to hire too many initially. I mean, I think what I will do is probably find outsource a few things. I'm lucky enough to have a college friend who, wants to develop my website for free and just needs it to put on his portfolio. So that's great. And yeah, I've just been kind of having meetings with various people who are going to help in different ways. And I'm not rushing though. I think my plan right now is to open the first location in like 3 to 4 months. And yeah, right now I'm still in the process of finalizing the incorporation. I actually just got an email right before this saying that the incorporation is official, but I still need to get all the documents in the mail and everything. And then I need to create a bank account and all that. So yeah, but it's going. The process is in motion. And I think, as of now, I would like to open Unity location number 1 in like March or April, I would say.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. You said that you were drinking coffee a lot before, and now you're switching over to tea. Did you ever have any issues with drinking coffee and playing poker? I know I've seen a lot of players sort of just down coffee while they're playing, and I don't know, maybe people that suffer from anxiety, coffee, that huge amount of caffeine might not be good for their game. And I don't know, would you recommend tea for people that might feel like they're getting like jittery or whatever at the poker table?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced some of that. I mean, certainly, I never made it a habit to spend like late nights in the poker room, but at times, there'd be a really good game that I didn't want to quit. So certainly on those nights where I'd play till like 4 a.m. or even later sometimes. I mean, I could remember a couple of sessions where I played till like noon. Yeah, on those nights I would definitely do it. And I knew it was unhealthy, but I mean, I justified it by saying like, it's not a regular thing. It's just something I'm doing once in a while. This game justifies it, etc. But obviously that stuff is not good for you in the long run. So yeah, I mean, right now I think like this IO game that I'm talking about is on a much healthier schedule, and I'm trying to get my poker in the context of a normal like sleep schedule and all that, and I like that a lot more.
I don't know if there's been like a big shift in the thinking within the poker community about life balance and the amount of time that you spend on poker versus other stuff.
Oh yeah.
It seems like over the last 3 to 4 years, more and more people, not just you, are really advocating for scaling back play, thinking more about the long-term balancing stuff. I know you're not the first player to semi-retire or to publicly announce a reduced schedule.
Yeah, statement. Yeah, I actually was talking to Fedor a little bit this week, but yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a thing that's been more and more popular, especially amongst the best of the best in poker. It's not uniform. I mean, certainly there were times this summer where I was playing a game late night and I peeked in the Bobby's room and I saw guys like, Galfond and Ike and Ben Solsky playing PLO until 6 in the morning while I was playing a mixed game. But like, yeah, I mean, I think on a regular basis though, that like all these people are motivated to practice good health habits and balance and all that. And I think, but yeah, I mean, kind of like I've done in the past, like when the game justifies it, like people will make short-term exceptions, but it's a fine line. I mean, when you start making too many exceptions, then that's going to have a really bad effect on your health long term.
Mm-hmm. With what you've battled mental health wise over the years, did you ever have moments in your career where you felt like it was ever hard to step away from a session? I know it's like a complicated question because you need to stay in good games if they're profitable, but did you ever feel like it was ever hard to leave a session because you weren't happy outside of the poker table, and the poker table just, I guess, made you feel better than you did in your personal life?
Oh yeah, it's definitely happened to me at times. Yeah, I mean, I think it happens to us all. I mean, stress happens in life, and the poker table can definitely be an escape. I mean, for a professional poker player, it's the very best, the thing you probably do the very best. So, I mean, when you're stressed about some aspect of life or feeling like, your self-esteem's taking a little bit of a hit, like definitely going to the poker table and beating people at a competitive game can make you feel better. So, yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Mm-hmm. I know there must be some people out there reading about your semi-retirement and looking at your World Series of Poker results, and you have 3 bracelets in 4 years. It was just a little over a year ago in which you won 2, and I think you cashed 9 times this past summer. Is that correct?
In 2015, or wait, maybe I did actually. Yeah, I had a lot of small cashes this summer. I got a 4th in the 10K Raz, and I had a bunch of small cashes. I mean, and I was playing probably my B game at best because I was still kind of depressed. So.
Yeah, you've had just amazing results with the World Series of Poker, and being young, I mean, you could easily, it's probably fair to say that you could easily accumulate enough to one day be in the Poker Hall of Fame if you committed to that amount of time of playing and the number of tournaments. Do you ever think about that, like a legacy in poker? And I guess, what do you say to people that are, look at your tournament results at the World Series and be sort of wondering, like, how could you possibly scale back your play at this point in time when you're sort of at the top?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that for a long time. But I guess my counter to that would be you could look at people like Lyle Berman or Bobby Baldwin, who kind of did what I did and got out of, stopped playing poker full time and still ended up there anyway. Obviously they continued within the industry, and, Lyle was one of the chief drivers behind the WPT, which is tremendous. And Bobby's, a high ranking executive at MGM, which is also incredible. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not hard quitting. I mean, I intend to certainly play the main event every year until I die or, can't make it there. But, I mean, I'd like to play a few events next year, and I'll look at the schedule when it comes out and try to find a few strategic, like, small swings to make it there. But yeah, I mean, it is something I've thought about a lot. And yeah, while I would like to do that, I mean, it's not worth, it's not worth sacrificing my happiness and balance for that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the criteria for the Poker Hall of Fame is standing the test of time. But if you look back at other players, I mean, it's very common to hear people having periods of time when they didn't have many results. I mean, they still played, but I guess, do you think in a way it's not that uncommon to do what you're doing? A lot of the game's best players have gone through periods where they do other stuff or scale back their play.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, look at someone like Daniel Negreanu right now. I mean, he's not playing poker full time. Like, he plays like the tournament series that count, and he plays cash games when it's convenient. But I mean, his full time job is working for PokerStars, and just trying to market. Basically doing what they need him to do as the face of their company. And yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a lot more stimulating to him than playing poker all the time. He's still a great poker player, and I give him a lot of credit especially for working on his no limit game and reg battling at 50-100 on Stars a few years back. I mean, I think that's incredible that he did that, and I love his, whenever he does a Twitch stream or the one he did with Jay Carver on his mixed final table. But yeah, I mean, you look at Negreanu, I guess Phil Ivey's probably playing some kind of private games in Asia, but I mean, yeah, these are also people who are kind of out of the poker, the poker limelight a lot of the time, and they just kind of show up when it counts. And yeah, I mean, I could see myself doing similar things to that.
Mhm. Throughout your career, did you ever have any issues with any of the other casino games? A lot of people say that, whether it's sports betting or blackjack or whatever, it's a big leak for people that make a lot of money in poker if they play the other games too much. Did you ever have any issues with that?
Not really. I mean, I do enjoy just doing it with friends from time to time, but I've never, like, again, like, the money is just not really what drives me. Like, I don't think I have any kind of gambling addiction. I mean, I am willing to take on risk, but, there's nothing, I mean, I'm willing to take on risk when it's justified. Like, I'm a Kelly criterion better, so there's nothing about, like, playing a casino game where the house has an edge that makes me want to bet 10,000 on a hand. Like, it just, I mean, where I have gotten hurt a little bit is trying to bet sports and thinking maybe I'm sharper than I am in certain situations. But that's mostly with friends and not even paying juice. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like I'm not, I'm willing to take on risk and give loose action in some spots, but like kind of in like a Mike McDonald style way where like yeah, sometimes I might take the worst of it from time to time, but I'm not like knowingly going to take the worst of it.
Can you talk about, did you ever feel like it would be difficult to run a company, even if you weren't, I guess, playing a lot of poker, if you were just sort of still within the lifestyle, gambling on random things, even if, for not a lot of money, or just, going out a lot with poker, playing friends, and do you feel like in a sense this blog post would allow you to, create this like definitive separation between poker and your new venture and give you that ability to really focus on what you're doing now with the tea company?
Yeah, I'd say that was kind of part of the intent. Like, it gives myself accountability where, like, if I can't really go back now. Like, I made this decision and everybody knows about it. And, I can't just decide in, like, a few months, like, oh, this is too hard. I want to go back to traveling the WPT circuit. So, I mean, and yeah, like, I still do plan on playing some when it works out. Like, yeah, I mean, I think for sure in this industry, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of like local small business owners, and I think it's crucial that in year one I spend a lot of time in the store. So, yeah, I mean, I want to save on labor costs and all that, and I think it's probably going to be run the most smoothly if myself in collaboration with like my partners and employees make decisions. So, I think it will run more smoothly if I'm present. So, yeah, I want to try to show up as much as I can, and yeah, occasionally I'm going to take a week long trip to Vegas to play some World Series events, but on a week to week basis, I want to be here.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned that you made good friends when you were in Vancouver, and you've met a lot of people that you've liked in poker. But would you say that for the most part, it's difficult to find close friends in this industry? I guess people you can really trust.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like there are a lot of good people in the poker industry. I'm not trying to slam everyone. Like there are certainly a lot of people whose intentions are great and who are great people and who I would trust with almost anything. Someone like Phil Galfond, like I would, whatever that guy needs, like I got him. He's one of the best people I've ever met. And there are a lot of other examples too. I'm not saying there's only a few. That said, there are also people who have, actively courted my friendship and I got close to, and then later in the game I realized, oh, like they actually weren't pursuing my best interest. They were using me kind of to benefit them. And there's a lot of that in poker, and that sucks. Like, I mean, obviously I think I'm more willing than most to kind of like call out someone when I think they're doing something scummy. But there's a lot of people who I could call out, and I don't think it's a good idea, but who have done really messed up things to me and to others that I know. And yeah, I mean, that's really frustrating to me, and that's another one of the driving factors behind just wanting to break free of the industry.
Yeah, I saw you write something about how live poker, you can often find a table that's not friendly, and it just makes the whole experience sort of crummy, and especially for the recreational player who's maybe a bad experience or two might keep them away from the game for a while. Do you think that's something that needs to be cleaned up in poker? I mean, just table etiquette, maybe like it's really hard to find the right word. I mean, manner, like just the way people treat each other at the table. And I know people in like a tough poker economy, people on downswings are going to be, testier. It's understandable to be a little bit frustrated if you're on a downswing. But do you think for the most part there needs to be more accountability for how people treat each other at the table?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the fundamental problems of the industry. I think there are a lot of poker pros who are just so wrapped up in their own egos and, just so self-centered that I don't even think they realize like the externalities of what they're doing. Like, if they get into it with someone at the table who they have a problem with, like, which is, this has happened to me several times in the last couple of years, most notably at the 2015 main event when there were like 60 people left and a poker player who I suppose I won't name, but shouldn't be too hard to figure out, was just giving me a lot of crap at the table and just like, calling me out in front of a bunch of recreational players who were like not in the mood to listen to this at all. And it's just so bad for the game. Like, I don't understand how like poker players can be that like self-centered and egotistical and, short-sighted and realize that they're pushing recreational players away every time they do something like that. So yeah, I've experienced a lot of it and I've seen a lot of it secondhand also. And it's a huge problem. It might be the biggest problem in the poker industry.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of people outside of poker, and maybe people that play really rarely, just I feel like forget how much of there's waiting in poker. Just sitting around, at the table, you're not going to be playing, that high of a percentage of your hands. There's a lot of downtime at a poker table, and if that downtime is spent, sort of being on edge because of other people at the table, it really can hurt the game itself. Have you ever left a game because you just felt like the vibe was just so toxic that you had to leave? Maybe it wasn't good for your mental health.
I think so. Honestly, I think until a few months ago, I was kind of like, that guy who always just like wanted to see the glass half full in these situations and like try to just like, bring people together and like settle disputes and like move on. Ironically, just this Tuesday, I was playing basketball with some poker players, and a couple of them were just like, being really annoying. Like, out of line, very out of line, I would say. And I literally, in the middle of a basketball game, just walked out and left the Facebook group, South Florida Poker Player Basketball Meetup. And yeah, I just can't take it anymore. Like, there's just so much negativity, there's so much anger, and I get it. Like, I understand why these people are angry. Like, it's they think it's because of me, or at least they're projecting it on me, but they're angry because of the choices they've made to get here. And there's a lot of like resentment and jealousy and all that. And, it sucks. And I know I've gotten some crap for like kind of suggesting to a few people like, oh, like you should get therapy. I'm happy to pay for a session. Like, that's a genuine thing I'm trying to say. Like, I've personally had a lot of therapy in my adult life, and it's made me a much better person today, and it's made me understand things a lot better. And I know people take it the wrong way, and I understand that, and I'll probably stop doing it because I get it. But yeah, I'm currently seeing two separate therapists, one for couples and one for individual, and it's probably the best thing I spend money on, honestly.
Hmm. Do you feel like some players use a poker table as their therapy session and vent at the table in ways that are pretty inappropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are many people in the industry, some who are currently tweeting angry things at me as we're having this conversation, who think it's okay to just walk into a poker room and take out all their life stress out on other people at the table. And that's just insane. Like, I can't even think of what other industry that happens in. So for reasons like that, yeah, I've just gotten to a point where I'm literally embarrassed to be a part of it. And I like the game, like, but dealing with people like that just makes it all not worth it to me.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm not going to ask you to name names, but I guess with this semi-retirement, do you feel like you're, in a way, needing to, wipe the slate clean? And do you feel that motivation? Do you feel like an urge to, sort of call out people once and for all to really just get it behind you? I'm not saying, I'm not trying to get you to do that, but do you feel like this is sort of like your way of closing this chapter in a way and putting some of these like past episodes of people scamming you or being dishonest to you, like truly behind you?
Yeah, I mean, I have no interest in naming names except in like the most egregious of cases. Like, I mean, I don't know if you saw my tweets at that guy Chris Swayze, Cool Bear. I mean, he's just outright scamming me and my friends for money and continues to tweet 95 times a day, which is pretty over the top. But I mean, for the most part, though, I mean, I don't think it's worthwhile to call these people out. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, the lines they're breaking are more gray than black. I think they're going very far over the gray area, but it is what it is. I mean, that's kind of the industry we're in, or I was in, I guess. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I've just kind of come to see it for what it is. And I mean, I think a lot of the anger these people have for me is because I see right through their acts and I see right through their phoniness, and I'm willing to call them out. Whereas a lot of other people just kind of, put it aside and let it slide. I did that for a long time, and I think during the course of my relationship, especially with Sonia, I've learned that, I can't just let people walk over me like that. And yeah, I mean, it's just the way I want to live my life going forward. If somebody's doing something really unethical toward me or someone who I know is a good person, like I want that to be transparent. I mean, if possible, if it makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, with Trump being in the White House, a lot of people are speculating on what this could mean for the casino industry. There's a lot of speculation that it'll be really good for efforts to legalize sports betting nationwide. There seems to be some talk about online gaming could go either way. Trump is a former casino owner, but Sheldon Adelson might have Trump's ear, and he wants online gaming banned. But if online poker was approved, nationwide or in a lot more states, and sports betting was legal, and there was another big poker boom or another big online gaming boom, do you think you would feel temptation to get back into it? I mean, just given how much experience you've had, if there was that another gold rush in online gaming, do you think that would draw you back to playing more full time?
It would not draw me back to playing full time. I mean, it might cause me to bring my desktop to work and play as much poker as I can when there are no customers in the shop. But yeah. No, it's my decision is final. I mean, and I mean, to be clear, I mean, yeah, Trump took 25 million of Sheldon's money a week or two before the election. So I think the chances of federally regulated online poker and during the Trump presidency is zero. So yeah, I mean, and that's a factor in my decision also. I mean, I just. Honestly, the election was one of the main motivating factors behind the timing of my decision. Like, I mean, the day after the election, I thought the market was incredibly overvalued, which, I mean, I've dug into Trump super hard in the last year and a half because I bet money against him winning the election as early as last summer. So I had a financial interest to, do all the research. And pretty much everything I've found is as bad or worse than you can imagine. And yeah, I mean, so the day after the election, when the market was up 2%, I withdrew everything I had in U.S. stocks, and I invested in, a bunch of more or less conventional things like Bitcoin and gold and a Russian large cap ETF and treasuries. And I thought it was a good time to start a small business because I don't have any other many other great investing options right now. And I mean, Trump is going to lower taxes for business owners, and yeah, I mean, I think the economics makes a lot of sense for now to be a good time to start a business. So,
do you ever feel like it's understated how much of a role the U.S. economy, the Great Recession had with sort of the contraction of the American poker market and sort of the drop off in online poker? I mean, a lot of people point out the lulls and Black Friday and the game's getting tougher, but the financial crisis happened in 2008, sort of near the height of the poker boom, and there's been research showing that wages have really not improved for many years. Do you think I guess broader economic factors sort of play into the toughness of the current poker economy and how the industry is not really growing these days?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely it's something I've almost never heard talked about, but I think it's definitely true. That like I think probably a big reason why there was so much like public backlash and why why the UIGA started getting enforced was because there were people who like when they had the disposable income they didn't mind firing a few hundred or thousand off at online poker, and once the recession hit and money was tight, they started to resent the fact that they did that, and that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, I haven't followed it as closely as you, I'm sure, but I would suspect that's a very big factor, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much all I have for you at this moment. But I guess last question for you: when is your next planned poker tournament? I know you were in one the other day. You finished third, correct?
I did. I won a big pot with the Deuce 3 off, making a full house. But unfortunately, after that, I made actually a really bad call off the bus, I think, in hindsight. But I feel like such a rec player donk saying this, but like literally, like I was up for 14 hours at the time. I woke up at 7 in the morning. It was like 9 p.m. Final table was dragging out, and I got tired. And this guy made a shove, and I thought it was really close. And I knew like the right thing to do was to fold and like use my skill edge in future hands. But I was like, you know what? These guys are kind of nice people, and it's late, and I'd like to go home and relax. So, if I call and lose, it's not the end of the world. So I called and I lost. But, I mean, yeah. So my next tournament, though, I was going to go to Bellagio this week, but I think I'm a little bit too busy right now. Most especially, honestly, the main reason is because Sonia's taking a real estate class right now, and she's in the home stretch, and I just want to be here for her. But, I mean, I'm also, also taking the time to focus on business and, just getting some separation from like all the angry people in the poker community is probably a good thing for me right now. So, I mean, if there's any tournaments coming up in Florida, I haven't really looked at the schedules, but I'd be down to play if like the Isle has something soon. Other than that, I guess there's an outside chance I would play Aussie Millions. I've never gone, and it seems kind of compelling, but I probably won't. It's kind of a long trip, and I have some other like international travel planned later in the year. So, I don't know. I'll look at the schedule. Maybe LAPC? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, hearing you talk about that bust-out hand when you finished third, you sound like really okay with it. I mean, do you think you're already in this healthier state of mind where you can look at a bust-out and not have it, get you down like maybe it once did?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been pretty good at that. Like, I think it's important to not be too hard on yourself. Although, certainly at times when I was depressed, I was very hard on myself at the poker table, and I would be very critical of every mistake I made, and I was making a lot more mistakes too, so that wasn't great. But, I mean, I think certainly just, having this kind of feeling in the back of my mind that I'm not playing for a living anymore, so, if I make a mistake that costs me a little bit of EV, it's not the end of the world. Like, it is kind of nice to have that feeling, but I think it's more of like something I've just developed over the years. And again, I'll mention The Mental Game of Poker by Jared Tendler as probably the most valuable poker book I've ever read, just in terms of getting in the right mindset, which I think, there's a lot of good content in terms of the technical aspects of the game out there, but the mental game isn't focused on nearly enough, and I think that book is a great coverage of it.
Mm-hmm. It seems like there's a fine line between looking back at a hand that you played, maybe if you're in a session, you played a hand bad and lost a good chunk of your stack. You might want to, look at that hand and think about what you did wrong, but obviously you can't keep thinking about the hand throughout the entire session, otherwise you aren't going to play well. I mean, is that tough for some players, do you think, to just like have the right amount of like reflection on a hand that was misplayed, but not too much to the point where it's going to bog down your thought processes later in the session?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough in live poker, I would say, just because there's so much dead time. So, like, you make a mistake, and then you might not have an hour to play another hand to try to win it back. Whereas in online poker, like, kind of the action's moving so fast. Plus, if you have tracking software, you can just, like, look back at the hand later and analyze it. Whereas in live poker, like, it's very hard to not just, like, spend the next 10 minutes like dwelling on it. And it's a big challenge, and certainly something I had to learn how to do in live poker, and something that a lot of people, professionals included, struggle with to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially for people suffering from varying degrees of depression. I mean, that when you're depressed, it definitely causes you to think. You're thinking more about past events, right? I mean, it's sort of just the nature of the condition, right? You're more sensitive to things, and you look at things, I guess, with a more critical eye than maybe people that don't have depression. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yeah, and certainly, I'm saying I'm good at doing that now. When I was depressed, I was a lot less good at it. Like, when I was depressed, I certainly was that guy. I mean, earlier this year, I was in Philly. I didn't play poker. I don't think I played a hand of poker for a month and a half. I was pretty much lying in bed and tried to read self-help books. And then finally in January, I'm like, okay, well, I can't just do this forever. I gotta try to play. And I remember, I think the first poker I played was like a $200 tournament at Sugar House that was right down the street. And then I ended up, eventually moving to I played 2-5 no limit at Sugar House and Parks a bunch earlier this year. And I would get texts from friends saying something like, oh, so-and-so told me you're playing 2-5. Is that true? And all that stuff. But, whatever. I sucked it up. I played 2-5. I found some friends who were willing to give some non-judgmental advice. And, I built up some confidence step by step, one step at a time, one day at a time. And, by a couple months later, I was confident enough to play some 10-10 and, play some PLO, which I actually didn't even play PLO for a couple months because I didn't think I could play. And then, by the time, I was lucky enough to back into a pretty generous backing deal at the World Series of Poker. So even though I didn't feel great about playing all these 10Ks and everything, I was getting free rolled into them. So that took a lot of the stress away. But and then kind of as the year went on, I was gradually playing bigger and bigger again. And, now I'm to a point where I have complete confidence in my poker game, but it's just not what I want to do full time going forward.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's unfortunate that there's some sort of stigma or shame that surrounds a player who has to move down in stakes? I mean, it seems like a lot of people have a hard time with it. I mean, maybe not just from their own way of thinking about it, but from how other people are reacting to see them playing at a table with smaller stakes. Do you think that's sort of just part of your issue with poker? A lot of the mean spiritedness that you've encountered, there's just a lot of judgment going on, and if you're having to drop down in stakes, it becomes this you have to sort of prepare yourself mentally for how people are going to react to seeing you there. And is that something that another aspect of poker that you would say is just could be improved? People shouldn't really give other people a hard time for whatever happens to their bankroll. It shouldn't be this shameful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a bad thing, and many a poker player has gone broke because they just couldn't swallow their pride and drop down. It was really hard for me too. I mean, I'm not saying I'm some special case. Basically, when I didn't play poker for a month and a half, the last time I played poker before that, I went to Borgata for a weekend trip to play a 200-400 mix, which I was playing at the time, but I was starting to fall into depression, and I wasn't sure if it was a great idea, and Sonia certainly didn't think it was a great idea, but I said, oh, it's a good game, I'll be fine. And then I remember I played for 3 hours playing 200-400 mix. I lost $20,000. I remember I would be playing I was playing draw games, and I'd forget if it was Badoosie or Badesi and keep the wrong cards or discard the wrong card. I was just making huge mistakes, and I remember I had that session. I lost 20,000 straight in 3 hours in a pretty soft game too. And I quit. I went back up to my room. I had a hard time getting out of bed the day after that to leave the Borgata. I remember it was actually the weekend that Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots passed, and I remember I was just lying in bed watching Scott Weiland's Stone Temple Pilots and Velvet Revolver videos and just wallowing in my misery. And I didn't play poker after that for a month and a half. And my Christmas last year was really tough. I just didn't like myself at the time, and I wasn't really able to talk to anybody pretty much. My family members are great, and they tried to start conversations with me, and I just couldn't hold a conversation. So depression's a pretty crazy thing, and I'm hoping it's in my past and not my future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's all I have for you, Brian. I really appreciate the interview today, and it sounds like you're on a great track, and best of luck with your new business. That's really exciting.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Best of luck to you as well.
That's a wrap here with Brian Hastings. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully all of you found something useful from the experiences Brian has had to share throughout his poker career. You can follow Brian's journey on Twitter at Brian C. Hastings.